This is InTune with Mic Fabus, a captivating blend of music interviews with legendary musicians. Take it away, Mick.
Thanks, Don. My guest is Billy Branch, the heir apparent to the Chicago blues harmonica throne. Mentored by the great Willie Dixon of the iconic Chess Records in Chicago. Well, it's great to have you on the show.
Yeah, great to be here. Thank you.
I appreciate that. So where did it all start for you?
I picked up harmonica at about 10, 11 years old. Just walked into a Woolworths, 5 and dime store, which a lot of your viewers may not know what that is, but at the time they were as prevalent as Walgreens. They were all over the place,
Sure.
you know. Saw a harmonica in a glass case. Never having heard anyone play one or seen anyone play one. Somehow a voice came and said I could play that. And I asked the clerk how much it was. He said $1. I had $1. And as soon as I put it in my mouth, I could play any folk song or Christmas carol I could think of. And I kept the harmonica over the years, which wasn't a 10-hole diatonic harmonica that we use for blues. It was a folk harmonica.
Okay.
And with the double reeds, which you find probably in every country,
Sure.
South America, Europe, France, you know. And when it would wear out, I'd buy another one. And that harmonica followed me back to my birthplace, Sweet Home, Chicago, where I was waiting to attend my classes at University of Illinois, Chicago Circle campus. In the meantime, there was an ad on either radio or TV ad about a festival down in Grant Park. And this was arguably the world's greatest blues festival ever produced, except maybe Ann Arbor. But some of the performers were Bo Diddley, Big Mama Thornton, James Cotton, Big Walter Horton, Buddy Guy, Junior Wells, Jimmy Reed, Muddy Waters. And Willie Dixon provided the backup band, and he produced the festival. And I was so blown away. That was a life-changing moment. I didn't even know what blues was. I mean, if you said Muddy Waters to me back then, I wouldn't have known if it was a geographical location or a person. 7 years after that, I became Willie Dixon's harmonica player.
Fantastic. Fantastic. You gotta love the way that works, right?
Yeah.
It's something else. Now, Willie mentored you.
Mm-hmm.
He came from the pedigree of Chess Records,
Right.
which he basically ran the place, correct?
Yeah.
Physically speaking.
Yeah, he was the A&R man. He wrote so many of the hit songs that, Wolf, Muddy, Little Walter, Sonny Boy that they recorded, and he produced a lot of those sessions, yeah. And played bass on a lot of them.
What a chance to have his experience and his mentorship.
17-year-old kid coming from Los Angeles, California. My mother didn't play blues records around the house. None of my friends did. I was completely oblivious to the genre. I had no reference point. And we ended up having jam sessions every single day in the student union. Now, one of the guys I met on campus, my friend Lucius Barner, his mother at the time was Junior Wells' girlfriend. I said, hey man, you gotta take me down to meet Junior Wells. So Junior Wells' home base was Teresa's Lounge, 48th in Indiana. They used to call it the Hole because you walk down into the steps. It was like in the basement. And the smoke would be so thick you could cut it with a knife. There was no ventilation, no air conditioning. I remember my eyes watering because the smoke would burn so bad. So he finally brings me down there to meet Junior Wells. Junior, this is my buddy Billy. He wants to learn harp. Why don't you show him some your little tips? Junior looked at me like, and he says, "Why you bring this EMF down here? I'm trying to teach you." Well, Junior was kind of a ladies' man. Well, he was a ladies' man, you know, and here I come, 18 years old, bright eyes, and, you know, looking pretty decent. And he probably, last thing he went, "What you bring there? I don't want this cat hanging around me, and I'm trying to get all the ladies," for one thing. Ultimately, over the years, I proved myself and earned Junior's respect because he and the others that I learned from, Big Walter Horton, James Cotton, Kerry Bell, there was many others. There was guys like One-Armed John Rencher, Good Rockin' Charles. But the main guys I'd follow around was James Cotton, Junior Wells, Kerry Bell, and Big Walter.
Sure.
And because they saw how serious I was about learning this art form and how dedicated I was to the album, The Harp Attack.
Sure.
Which...
all of those gentlemen
Yes.
were on that record.
Right. That was James Cotton, Junior Wells, Kerry Bell, and myself.
Right.
And Bruce Eglar, the owner and producer of Alligator Records,
Right.
told me that he had assembled the three of those, Cotton, Kerry, and Junior, and he told them, he said, "We need a fourth harmonica player." And he's told me on numerous occasions, he said, unanimously, they said, "Get Billy." Great. And that is probably a bigger accolade and honor than even Grammy nominations. These guys would cut my head, you know what a head cut, blow you off the stage, which they did for decades, for them to come and say that I was the one they wanted to be included on this significant project, because that an album like that had never been done before.
Quite an honor.
Yeah, those were the three greatest living exponents of Chicago blues harmonica.
Now, did you start with Little Walter?
I came into Little Walter, of course. Little Walter is God of blues harmonica.
Sure.
He's Charlie Parker, he's Coltrane, he's Jimi Hendrix. Little Walter used distortion and feedback way before Hendrix and the rock guitarists, but he used that as a recording performing tool, because they said when he came out with Juke, which was the #1 million selling hit on Chess Records, it was said that the jazz musicians would gather around the jukebox trying to figure out what instrument he was playing.
Yeah.
But he revolutionized it. But of course, you got to go through Little Walter. But yeah, Little Walter, Sonny and Sonny Boy were my go-to guys on recording.
That type of harp playing grew out of Maxwell Street.
Yeah, I mean, Maxwell Street was the first showcase for a lot of the guys coming from the South. Muddy and Little Walter, right there. That's where they first would perform. Yeah, that was on the streets, running. I got to go there when I was still attending Circle Campus. We'd go there sometimes on Sunday. But yeah, they run the electrical line from somebody's window and plug it into the amps, and they'd play for tips. Yeah.
It's interesting how in the late 60s, how the white British blues musicians that evolved from your music, Clapton, Beck, we've talked about all these people, right? Jimmy Page, the Yardbirds doing I'm a Man. I mean, come on. That was a cool record.
Right.
But it wasn't Muddy Waters. As a guitar player myself, I learned a lot of those things from British artists, even though I was from Chicago and knew about B.B. and Muddy and Little Walter. The British artists still had a huge impact on me because they were doing it now with instead of a Fender Tweed, they were doing it with Marshall stacks. And it was really loud. And Hendrix, like Buddy Guy, I mean, Buddy preceded Hendrix by many years with the loud, sustain, and fuzzy guitar playing. And Buddy's emotion of that thing, right? That thing?
Yeah.
That's him. I heard a song by him, and I hear this hellacious guitar playing. I said, who is that? That's Buddy Guy. I think from that moment forward, you know, it's been an interesting ride for me personally, but to get your insight into where you come from, getting in with the right group of people to mentor you, and the fact that you rose to the occasion and practiced and practiced and practiced in untold hours. Let's face it, right? There's more practice than being on stage. And put that little harmonica in your pocket becomes a part of you.
Right,
you know?
right. You know, Buddy, I've heard Buddy say it personally, and I've seen many interviews, and the guys, they give credit where credit was due, because Muddy and Buddy and guys, they credit the Stones and the British invasion for resurrecting their careers, because the blues had kind of come out of, fallen out of favor in the, you know, in the 60s, the advent of course, the heavy rock and roll, and it has started disappearing from the airwaves, especially in the black airwaves. It was,
Right.
It just completely disappeared. Like I said, there were so many clubs, there probably wasn't a blues club I didn't go to. It was actually my wife pointed out to me that, she said, do you know, after August 30th, 1969, it was only 7 years that you became Willie Dixon's harmonica player.
It's amazing.
That,
It's amazing.
and I had never thought about it like that.
But you were there.
Yeah.
You were living it.
Yeah.
And you were feeling it. And
Yeah.
you were practicing.
Yeah.
And digging real deep.
Really deep.
Because you have to.
Yeah.
And I used to needle drop records. And guess what? Yes, I did put it on 16 RPM
Yeah.
to figure out some of those riffs.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
But then do it in real time. The Roots and Branches record, tremendous record.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, tell me a little bit about that.
My wife and I became, over, I'd say within the last, it's been a little bit, 10 years or so, we met Little Walter's daughter, who goes by Marion Diaz from her married name. Matter of fact, she started a foundation, and my wife is actually head of the Little Walter Foundation, but we became very good extended family over the years. My wife was adamant, said, man, you got to do a Little Walter album. I said, yeah, but there's been tons of Little Walter's albums. I didn't want to do, you know, I never wanted to do.
Like a tribute or nothing like that, right?
Well, yeah,
you want to do your own take on it.
Well, I didn't want to do what everybody else had done, because there's been
Right.
quite a few Little Walter tributes. And then Marion, his daughter, wanted this, and said, okay. You know, when I play, for example, a Little Walter song or Sonny Boy Williamson song, usually the first solo that I take is a duplicate of the recording.
Like a reference.
And then it's a reference. And then after that, then I
Here's where I
add my
went
own
with it.
style.
Here's
Right,
where I'm going with it.
exactly.
Okay.
I've got really crackpot band, great group of guys. They masterfully handled this project.
That you're talking about the Sons of the Blues,
The
right?
Sons of the Blues, which originally was formed in 1977, with every member, except for myself, was the son of a famous blues musician. So the challenge was give tribute to Little Walter's style, and then add something original. And I felt that we successfully did that.
Yeah.
And after we embarked on the project, as you well know, once you get things going, then things start happening. Ideas come, and the creative,
It's a wellspring.
yes, it starts happening. And so I felt that we did justice to the memory of Little Walter.
That's a great point, because as a recording artist and a performer, you know what you heard in your head when you
Right.
were first influenced by whomever.
Right.
When you're in the studio, it's kind of a magical thing,
It
where
is.
all of a sudden it becomes yours. Of course there are going to be references. Of course.
Yeah.
Because they're great.
Right. Well, I wanted to kind of stay in the Little Walter idiom, you know, but still make it mine.
You hear the little Walter records, hear your records, and I hear that commitment
Yeah.
to making it right.
Right.
And to communicating with people, reaching people, hitting them in the heart with your genius. You've got a record deal currently with Iglauer and Alligator?
Well, he's waiting to see what I come up with. So right now, technically, I'm an Alligator artist.
Okay.
I still am. But he's waiting to see. If he likes it, it could likely end up on Alligator.
So you're looking at, what, 10 tracks?
At least.
And are you about halfway there?
At
or
least.
would you
Yeah,
say?
a little bit over halfway there.
That's great.
Yeah.
One thing I learned about you was that you've been the pioneer in blues education.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
I've been teaching youngsters since 1978. My first residency through the Illinois Arts Council was at Newberry Elementary School on the north side. And since then, I went on to expand that program. I went through Urban Gateways, which was based in Chicago, which placed artists of all disciplines in the schools in the Chicago and suburban areas. But then I took my program out of state with my entire band. So my wife, as a matter of fact, wrote the grants to bring us to Seattle for a month at a time. And that setup would be where we'd have 5 days a week, 2 hours a day. The kids would learn, all of them learn harmonica. Those who want to learn bass, drums, or guitar or piano, they go with those respective
People.
We split up the class, and then
Right.
towards the end of the program, we have performances. In Seattle, the kids would go perform at different schools, and sometimes even at a nightclub and at blues festivals. Internationally, I've done it through a State Department tour. I was teaching it in Haiti and Suriname, Guyana. I did 2 weeks in Belgium, Antwerp, Belgium.
Sure.
I had Kosovo and Albanian refugee kids. I'd done 2 weeks in Jalapa, Veracruz, Mexico, where I taught my classes in Spanish. Did a collaboration with a guy, Ramon Gutierrez, plays son jarocho, which has the commonality with the blues is that music was derived from slavery in Mexico. So, and I've got an ongoing program right now at the West Side. We're on break now, but at the West Side, Chicago Legal Prep High School. So, and the former kids that from my very first residency, 1978, who now have grandkids, on occasion still come out to the clubs.
That's great.
And I've got stories that could bring tears to your eye that are so inspirational. But in some cases, we focus on kids learning to play the instruments, but the important part is we impart the history. And we start out with a mantra, why are we here? To sing and play the blues. What are the blues? The facts of life. That's Willie Dixon's definition. What makes the blues so important are our history, our culture, and the roots of America's music.
Right.
And it's important for the kids to know that. It's important for the world to know that. I mean, here Chicago is the blues mecca, and a lot of people don't realize, some of the things we're talking about. All of America's music came from the blues.
Sure.
Jazz, rock, pop, country, gospel,
All of it.
soul. It all came out of the blues, out of the cotton fields of Mississippi.
It was always interesting to hear Ray Charles sing a country tune.
Yeah.
Because I'm doing it Ray Charles' way,
Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, come on.
But Hank Williams, the acknowledged father of country music, learned to play guitar from a black blues man.
That's great.
Yeah.
So it is more than the blues had a baby, they call it rock and roll. It's
Blues had a baby
had many babies.
and it had quintuplets.
Quintuplets. Love that. Oh, that's fantastic. So some of these stories you say would bring tears. Do you want to share one of those? Are you comfortable doing
Well,
it?
sure. We had a young lady that was suicidal. She was very depressed, and my bass player became a mentor to her. She became accomplished at the bass. She became an A student And she went on to go to college and even came back in subsequent blues in schools and admonished the kids that we had at the time who weren't paying attention and told them, you better pay attention. And but I tell you, here's a funny one. In Wisconsin, in Milwaukee, we had a month-long residency, and at the end of the program, they had a little testimonial for the kids, and the coordinator said, these two young boys came up and they said, talk about how much they enjoyed the program. He said, well, you know, those two kids, you had the two worst kids in the school. I said, who? And she pointed, I said, those guys, they were the only guys that had perfect attendance. He said, well, that one burned down the principal's office last year. The other one had threatened to kill his mother. Wow. But from the program, it transformed. They had something to hold on to. Had another one in Chattanooga, Tennessee. They had a young man, the teachers bet that he wouldn't last one day because he was a fighter. He'd get in fights. Well, he came every day, and then at the end of the program, his granddad says, you know, I just want to come and meet you, and I want to appreciate what you did for my grandson. And when he was with you, he didn't fight one day. Of course, he didn't tell me his teacher was colored. but that kid, at their final performance, sent up, after they had done their show, because that's typically they do a show, he sent up a note and said, Mr. Branch, can we do one more song? And this was the kid that the teachers bet wouldn't last one day.
I think that's a great example.
Yeah.
Two of those examples are a great example of how kids that have all the brains any kid could ever have can't fit into the system.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And in certain hierarchical types of structures, that kid is never going to be okay in school. So you did a beautiful thing there.
A lot of time, even the teachers, we've had testimonies said if it wasn't for music, which unfortunately is the first thing to be eliminated out of the school system, a lot of the teachers even said if it wasn't for music, they wouldn't have made it.
Don't you find that paradoxical, because it's the universal language, yet we're going to throw it out of school right away?
Yeah.
But you have to learn German.
Yeah, you got to learn German, and how many of you are ever going to have a chance to use it?
Canceled, though.
Please call me on the phone sometime. I pick up the receiver, you know it ease my worried mind. One of these days, I'm gonna show y'all as a man can be. One of these old days, I'm gonna show y'all as a man can be. I'm gonna buy a brand new Cadillac if you only speak some good words to me.